Lead on time.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, if we can just move on to the approval of minutes, allowing the board to review. If I can have a motion to approve the minutes.
I second it, I guess.
The
Or-
First with a motion,
I make a motion.
then a second. Move to approve the minutes with an aye for all. Yes.
Aye.
You agree? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. With that, we can move on to reports, and I think we'll move right to Tammy.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Ian, if you want to kick over, thank you. Aw, I bet that was planned. It probably was. And they look gorgeous together. And right over here on the end here is Tracy Kroom, our program coordinator, her husband, and her son. So last Friday night, we had our 15th annual, believe it or not, Radnor Sweetheart Dance. So we were really excited to get to the 15-year milestone. It was a great success. We had over 300 in attendance. It was another sellout with a large, hefty wait list. It took place at the Inn at Villanova University, who we've been partners with for about the last 5 years of doing this event at the Inn. And they do quite a big spread for us with a lot of food, the accommodations, all of the service for the evening, and we get the opportunity to use their large ballroom, which has really been an amazing addition to the event. For those of you who don't know the history of the event, it did start out at the Willows. We outgrew the Willows. We ended up at the Radnor Hotel. We outgrew the Radnor Hotel. And here we are at the Inn at Villanova, which is a really great space and a nice large space for us. It was a great event. It was very successful. Our staff had a great night, great evening with lots of activities going on, arts and crafts activities. We had a little claw machine that was there. You could see in the pictures here to the left. And we had lots of dancing. Mainline Dance Studio, of course, was there with us. Mainline Dance Company, who we work with over the summer with summer camp, was there doing lots of dance activities with the girls and the kids and the boys. We actually have transitioned this event. It used to be a daddy-daughter-based event, and now it's really for everyone. And we've seen the benefit of that as we have lots of families coming out and enjoying the night together with us. And then at the end, it's capped off with a rose ceremony between the families, and just really a nice, memorable night for Valentine's Day. So we want to thank everybody who attended. Those who maybe didn't get into the event this year because they were on the wait list, I know next year we always give consideration for those folks to try and get them into the event first and foremost in registration, so that we can have an opportunity for everybody to get a chance to experience the event at one point, throughout their time here in Radnor, because it's really a great milestone to be part of. So I wanted to say thank you to the staff. I know Bakir was there Friday night, and of course to Tracy Kroom for all her leadership in putting the event together. This upcoming Friday, tomorrow, we actually will be having our 8th annual Bishop Richard Allen celebration. This commemorates Bishop Richard Allen's birthday, as well as his historic walk to Radnor Township in 1784. We have an opportunity this year to not only celebrate his life and legacy, but we're also transitioning this event from the AME Church, African Methodist Episcopal Church of Ardmore, now to the AME Church, that was the former St. John Church in Radnor, right up in Bryn Mawr. So we're really excited to have Reverend Kasha Sudler, who's going to be taking the torch from this event from Reverend Cavanis, who actually has moved on from AME Ardmore, and she is now serving as the head pastor of the Mother Bethel Church, of which was founded by Bishop Richard Allen in the city of Philadelphia. Both will be with us tomorrow at the event. We also will have Representative Borowski Our state representative will be with us, various commissioners will be there, and we're also going to have the fourth great grandchild of Bishop Richard Allen, Mrs. Yvonne Studevant, who will be in attendance. So it'll be a little cold. It is an outside event. We do a wreath laying and a little bit of a celebration. It's a group gathering. So for any of you who are available at 12:15 tomorrow, if you want to join us at Bishop Richard Allen Park, it's really a special event and gives us a chance to really celebrate the life and all the accomplishments of Bishop Richard Allen. So, and those of you who may have joined us also, several years ago, we had a historic marker that was dedicated in the park. So there's just some pictures of that. And if you visit our webpage, under our events and under the park webpage, you'll be able to get a lot of more information if you want to read up on Bishop Richard Allen and also the special day that took place a few years ago. Upcoming also, just a few events to highlight: the Arbor Day celebration, which will be in its 34th year. That's going to be coming up in April. We're still working out the location. We have the Youth Trout Derby, which is always a sellout for us, going into its 29th year. And the registration for that will take place on Monday, March 2nd. So we always sell out within a couple of hours. So I know folks are probably jotting the date and the time down so they can get ready for the registration to open. Wheels of Wayne, also another big event for us. We'll have our 12th annual coming up Sunday, April 26th, and registration is going to be opening next Thursday, February 19th, for vehicles. Another really popular event, and excited to be obviously partnering again with the Wayne Business Association to deliver this great event in downtown Wayne. The 12th annual Radnor's Great American Backyard Campout event's going to happen on Saturday, May 30th. Our registration for that's going to be opening on Monday, March 30th at 9 a.m. And we also have a bus trip coming up on April 11th to see Wicked on Broadway. So that is a trip to New York City. We do have a deadline of March 1st for registration for that. So for anybody that's interested in any of these events, any of the items and information that I've shown you, you can certainly jump on our website or give us a call. And then with that, I'm going to transfer this over to Bakir Altumbash, who is our program supervisor, and he's going to talk to you about the upcoming programming.
Thank you, Tammy. Good evening. It's hard to think about summer right now with how frigid it is, but we officially opened up Radnor Day Camp registration. Radnor Day Camp is going to take place June 22nd through July 31st. 6 weeks of fun. We have a lot of good things in store this year. We have a Phillies trip in the works. And, just an overview of the camp. We have an aquatics coordinator that does swimming lessons. We have all these different types of coordinators that we have, like sports and games, crafts, and things like that in a structured environment for kids to have a really good time. So with that being said, the onus turns on to our staff to get our staffing back in order. Last year, we had approximately a 50% retention rate for staffing. We had approximately over 50 staff. We're hoping to stay at that retention rate this year. And a lot of cool things we have this year to incentivize staff and to properly train them. Through the funding, through our NRPA grant, we have an organization called Positive Coaching Alliance coming in that's completely covered by the grant. It's a organization that emphasizes the positive impact on sports, on children, the emotional impact, and the structure that sports provide. New this year for camp, we're having just different incentivations for staff to attend all trainings and things like that. So we're really excited to get this underway, and we're looking forward to getting more and more staff. Wizarding Camp is on registration, opened up January 21st. Weeks 1 and 3 are sold out. We're still having some registrations for week 2. New this year, we have a field trips that we're doing. They're going to be going to Cork and Candles and KOP for a Wizarding-themed field trip. They'll all take home a custom candle. So we're continuing on the tradition of Wizarding Camp, and this follows Radnor Day Camp the 3 weeks following. Our spring and summer programs and camps are underway. World Cupsa, one of our longest tenured partners. We're very happy to be with them. Their World Cup Spring Break Soccer Camp and also their soccer juniors are all underway and registration is open. Survivor Nature Camp, one of our biggest camps. Last year we had over 475 participants with 8 weeks. This year we have 9 weeks, so we're hoping to hit over 500. And again, we just have a great relationship with Jake and Jeff and those guys. They are a pleasure to work with. The satisfaction with them is really high, and we're always very happy to work with them. Skyhawks, our program partner that does our Champions Athletics and our multi-sports. We're introducing golf camp over at the John Capelli Range right over here in Enki, and also beginner field hockey camp over at Radnor Memorial Park Turf Field. Hiking Hounds, they opened up their kids fishing camp, which actually sold out very quickly. We have a wait list for that. We're looking to see if we're getting enough people on the wait list to potentially open up a second week. And also Universal Rackets, again, one of our great partners. I like to update everyone with them in terms of just their social media presence. So they actually the program owner, Tyler, went to Turkey for a hair transplant, just a side note, but he is going to be filming that on his social media, and he actually met with some of my family over in Turkey. Just a little side note. But again, really excited to continue working with them. Some exciting news, we're bringing back Radnor Champions Basketball. Terry Ryer is going to be running this program. She ran it in 2024. And the exciting thing with this as well is we did hire a Champions Liaison for this program. Her name is Melina Woon Avery. She has 10 years as an experienced lacrosse coach. She's also a peer specialist. And we're really excited to work with her, and we're hoping to have her as a liaison for programs going forward for Champion Specific. So here I have a video from our Champions Athletics with Skyhawks. I just want to showcase that real quick. And again, real quick, just a quick topic on Skyhawks. We had one session last year for the Champions Athletics, so this year we have on the schedule for 6, and 4 of the sessions are going to take outdoors. So again, as a department goal, we're looking to really increase Champions programming and just be more inclusive as a department. And again, to continue with speaking of our department, I can't speak enough about the professional development opportunities there are that Radnor Township offers for us. And it's evident here, Christina Rios, our recreation assistant, took the onus on herself to start this program, Walk with Ease. It's a program for individuals who suffer from arthritis. Walking is medicine. The Walk with Ease program is proven to reduce the pain of arthritis, increase balance, strength, and walking pace, and build confidence in others' ability to be physically active. Christina came to us with this idea, and she had the support of our whole department, and especially Tammy, to get this program up and running. So we're very excited to get this underway. That is the programming report. Any questions?
I have one question. Did the cost of camp, the day camp, go up this year?
Yes, it did. The cost went from $24.75, and last year it was $19.75 for a full day.
What attributed, or what contributed to the change?
Yeah. Well, I'll speak a little bit on it, and Tammy, feel free to jump in if you feel the need to do so. But Radnor Day Camp, the staff that we have there, a lot of them are very highly qualified individuals that create a safe environment for the campers. A lot of them have teaching degrees. A lot of them have certain education, lifeguard supports, lifeguard certifications, I should say. So that is a big cost of our expenses, is our staffing and getting really qualified individuals there. Also, we do provide busing transportation for campers to and from the camp. And we have other things that are baked into the cost of camp, including free pizza, free cone ice, and various other things, T-shirts and things like that. Did I miss anything, Tammy?
The only thing I would say is that we did not raise the cost of camp for 2 years prior, from 2023, 2024, 2024, 2025. So in doing that, we kind of got behind in our expenses a lot and being able to, run the camp at a balance. A lot of things too, when it comes to the school district transportation department, who provides our daily transportation as well as our trip transportation, and the facilities that we operate out of, we do pay a fee for those. So I think a lot of times maybe the families associate that we just get those spaces at no cost, but they actually do come at quite a heavy cost for us every summer. So, taking a look at what our average increases had been over the years, we tried to kind of, lump that into 2 years, and that was what we, orchestrated in terms of a increase this year. So I think for families who didn't see it last year and then they saw it this year, saw an increase, year over year is may have been, a little bit, then it jumps over a 2, it's 2,000 now, over 2,000 versus being 1975, as Bakir had mentioned, going to 2,475 just sounds like a really big number. But in order to be able to attract the staff that we have, a lot of our staff have come back 5+ years, which is pretty amazing. So, we try to reward those folks for a job well done. And then, of course, in order to keep getting them back and having that good leadership, definitely comes at a cost. There's also all of the supplies. And then, of course, Bakir had talked about, we have the pizza built in, we have the trips built in, we have all the accommodations and everything built in with that. So that's sort of, what has led us to the cost of camp this year.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you both.
Just who's been doing the social media posting from Radnor? There's been good postings lately, but I saw that video.
Christina does those. Obviously, Bakir, provides content. Tracy provides content. Natalie provides content. But Christina's been doing a lot of those posts.
No, they're helpful. That video I think I saw today or yesterday, so it's pretty fresh. So.
Yeah, and having our program vendors on site, being able to take the videos and pictures, and taking the time to send that to us is huge.
Yeah, Wheels of Wayne, I saw lunch today. I think that was on Facebook. So it's definitely people. It's in their consciousness, which is that's what makes these successful. So.
Absolutely, yeah. There's high engagement in a lot of social media avenues, Instagram stories, our Facebook groups. We get a lot of engagement there.
I just want to add one more thing, that the Valentine's Day event was extremely well done. It was nicer and more professional and put together than a lot of weddings I've gone to. But we had a blast. It really exceeded our expectations.
Yeah, I can't just speak enough on the staff that Tammy has built here, with Tracy being here for 10 years and being the lead on events and having her experience there. It's been such a joy to be able to learn from everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If we can move on with the reports to Board of Commissioners. Any updates?
No.
Thanks, Howard. And Tammy, I would ask, is there anything from the Shade Tree Committee or other reports that we need to?
I have one more report. So speaking of social media posts, today you may have seen a post about the Skunk Hollow parking lot being closed until further notice. We discovered that there's some undermining and structural integrity areas that are in question on the vehicular bridge as you drive into the park. So we had an engineer out today to take a look at that. We're working through the report, so until further notice, the access will be closed. If the bridge does need to be replaced, which I understand it does, and we're going to be working through that under, an emergency repair. So it could be a while that we don't have access to that space. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that, members of the public, the board. And as soon as we learned of that today, we got messaging out. We already were getting phone calls from people who were, wondering why they couldn't get into Skunk Hollow. So we would just ask folks to use the parking that's at Sawmill as well as the Willows in order to access the Skunk Hollow trails. From the Shade Tree Commission, no real report yet. I know they're working on the spring tree planting program, so once I have more details on that, we'll certainly send that information around or advertise on social media or talk to the board about it next month once that comes to fruition. I know they'll be involved in the Arbor Day celebration, and they've also been working on some grants to do some tree plantings at the Willows and the riparian buffer along the exitway stream. So I know they've been busy, handling lots of different things, across the township, and I'll continue to provide updates relative to parks as we have them.
A quick question regarding the closure of that lot. Was that a routine inspection that found that, or was there an acute structural change to that bridge?
There was a visible
Change.
change that one of our Public Works guys noticed and brought it to our attention.
At least it didn't occur in the fall. Where would we put our leaves, right?
True. But spring is approaching.
Where do you have anything else in reports, or we should move on to new business?
No other reports unless the board has questions on anything.
I think we're ready for new business.
Tonight, under new business, I'd like to present a new item. This is a new project that has been brought to the department staff and the township staff by Commissioner Agnew, who is the ward commissioner for the area of Brookside Avenue and here around the township building and near the Radnor Trail. So this is her ward that's represented. This is a project that is an opportunity for us to take a sidewalk right now that really goes to nowhere. And I'll explain a little bit more about what that means in a couple of minutes with some aerials so you can take a look. But I just want to reiterate that, the area of Brookside Avenue and Ivan Avenue, a lot of these streets where we see, there's a lot of recreation happening. We have the Radnor Trail, we have baseball going on here at Enke Park, we have the skate park. It's an area where there's a lot of foot traffic and some very narrow roads where there's unfortunately not a lot of sidewalks to be able to access these great spaces. So the benefit, of course, in this area of being able to get people to places safely is really important, as you'll see in a minute when we start to really look into the area in which I'm speaking. So this project comes forward really on a mission for safety and for access to parks and recreation, which is something that is always ways we're looking to be creative to get people, to connect them to our spaces, no matter what neighborhood they live in. So if we look at the area that I'm referring to, so obviously right here you see Conestoga Road, and right here where the intersection is at Brookside, and then here's the Radnor Trail and the Radnor Trail overpass. So if you go this way, you're headed towards Clemacrone, heading east. Head this way, you're obviously going west. So right now we have a sidewalk that basically comes through this area, and it essentially dead ends right here with a 60-inch turning radius. So the sidewalk starts approximately here, and then it dead ends here. And you're probably wondering, why is that the case? Well, Sidewalks are generally constructed when there's new construction, and fortunately, when these homeowners reconstructed their homes, I think there are rebuilds in place, they gave permission for sidewalks, and sidewalks were constructed in a hope that one day we would be able to, patchwork, piecemeal, I should say, a sidewalk all the way through the western section of Brookside, all the way down to Ivan Avenue, and so forth. So, it's always a puzzle in trying to put together sidewalks throughout all of our communities and trying to connect our neighborhoods. So right now, anyone that's living on Brookside Avenue has to cross Conestoga Road, which is a very busy roadway. You've got a bend that comes around here. It's probably posted at 35 miles an hour. I'm sure people probably drive much, much faster. And we do have a crosswalk, and although it doesn't have a rapid flashing beacon or any type of safe crossing area, it's a difficult thing to do, even when you have those things. So the thought is if we can connect a sidewalk basically up to Oak Terrace, if we go a little further, I'll show you Oak Terrace. So you can see where the sidewalk's kind of ending up here, and I'll go back for a second. So essentially what we want to do is we want to try to get from the sidewalk to the Radnor Trail. And by the leadership of Commissioner Agnew, we've been able to develop a good relationship with some of the neighbors in and around this area. And we actually met with the owners here at 503 Conestoga, who we kind of walked this area and we took a look at, where their property is. I had a survey that was conducted that helped us understand the delineations of the property boundaries. And then we kind of talked about what some of the feasible ways to get to the Radnor Trail adjacent to their property would look like. And none of that engineering has been done officially yet, but we've had the property boundaries done so that we can understand that. And then in working with the residents, seem to be interested in the project and willing to share some of their property if needed for a right-of-way access. So the next step would really have us further engaging the residents and then further engaging PennDOT, because we want to have a conversation with PennDOT to understand, some of their concerns that might be in and around this area. When you take a look at the topography here, there's a steep slope that comes down onto the property of 503 Conestoga. So what you're seeing here down to where this line is, it's very steep. There's a lot of trees that go along this area. There's a lot of scrub and brush, but it's also steep, which could require a potential design that might entail a switchback. It might be able to go at grade in a straight line, because the goal is to have an accessible route to get to the trail coming off obviously off the sidewalk here. So our goal is to basically start a project where we'll do design and engineering feasibility to see what might work to get people safely to the trail, in addition to considering what might have to be a switchback or some sort of a long running, graded trail, to be able to achieve the ADA and engineering that will get somebody there in the proper manner from an engineering standpoint. There might be a boardwalk of some sort we might need to consider. I don't know if you've ever been to Radnor Preserve Apartments here. In the back, they have a large boardwalk that could be a possible structure as well. So I wanted to just kind of get this before the board tonight and see if you had any questions. So here is a street view. This shows you where the sidewalk pretty much ends, and then you can see a little bit of the slope here. There's also some stormwater features with a culvert that does go underneath the structures here. And then further back on the property of 503, there's a couple of other stormwater features that exist that we'll have to look at and navigate around. Of course, all to be done by the engineers once we engage a proposal. And tonight the goal was just to really show it to the board, answer any questions you might have, and also try to get just a motion of recommendation and support and the concept. And then the thought would be is, once we get a proposal out and we get an engineering firm potentially engaged in the project and working on the project, that would be something that would have to go most likely to the Board of Commissioners, so that, because it would be a proposal that would have to be approved in terms of the funding. So if the commissioners approve it, then we would start engineering and feasibility, try to determine is it possible. if it is possible, what would it look like? Would it be a boardwalk? Would it be a switchback? You know, what would that look like in terms of getting folks to the trail and getting there in an accessible way? And then obviously give costs of what that might be to construct so that we can understand what the order of magnitude is. And then before the project ultimately would be funded and taken back to the commissioners, we would want to get support from the Parks Board. So it would be another step to come back to get your final recommendation based on understanding all the X's and O's on what it would take for us to get the project constructed.
Were you looking for a motion tonight from us for general
Just
support?
just a general motion to recommend the concept.
Okay.
Can I ask a few questions? You know I have
Absolutely.
questions. From a feasibility standpoint and cost standpoint, have other options been explored? 'Cause it seems like this is going to be not a low six-figure project by the time you get it all done, to give an access point 100 yards away from where we already have one. Are there better options such as maybe the walkway being illuminated, raised? I know there's state highway issues with that. Any other options on the table to do this?
I think those have been definitely discussed. And I know that the crossing is a concern, I think, even when there are those methods in place. So I think that's been part of it, is where we've kind of wanted to stay on this side of Brookside to kind of keep people away from Conestoga, especially given the sight lines. And, you know, I'm not sure what the feasibility would be to install a pedestrian crossing that's a little bit more sophisticated than just the white piano key lines that are striped there now. But it's certainly something that I know has been considered, and like I said, you know, Commissioner Agnew has taken a look at this and talked with the residents, you know. And I think the goal, too, is if we can connect them on this side of Brookside, we can also connect them down to Ivan Avenue, too, and get them to Enke Park, the skate park, you know, in other areas where we know, you know, Township building, where there's a lot of recreation and a lot of, you know, things going on.
Any property acquisition involved in this, potentially?
There's,
Is that Township right away or
so there would.
railroad right away or adjacent to the trail, though? I don't know.
There would be a right-of-way that will be needed on this property, potentially. I don't think we'll be able to achieve this without going onto their property based on the initial survey data that, you know, I've been able to take a look at. It looks like there will be some impact here. There may even be an impact on the resident that backs up to 503, which is another conversation that we've been working through. So that is also part of it. So there will be a right-of-way access, but we're not looking to take any properties or anything like that.
As always should be a question, I guess, to ask of these things, and we've had some issues with this before. What kind of potential tree impact do we have here?
It will have to be looked at as part of this, without a doubt. And then whatever, if there is some potential tree, what I will say is the tree, being on the property and having walked the property about a month ago, and being over there a couple times on site, the trees are actually like in the hillside. They're in this, a lot of them are actually, I don't know if you could see it from this image, but a lot of them here are they're in the hillside. Obviously, there's going to have to be an opening that's kind of somewhere cut through here. And like I said, there is a stormwater feature that's underground there that we'll have to be mindful of. But a lot of the trees and a lot of the brush, once you get past here, there's really not major trees or large caliper trees that would be impacted. And we would, as we do with all of our projects, look to navigate around those, replanting plans, things like that, if it was to come to fruition. And then, of course, there would be fencing potentially on the property, you know, running along here where they would want to have some sort of, you know, screening as well,
That was my
given the
other-
traffic.
My other question about the wisdom of drawing more people down to that underpass, whether that's something that should be considered.
Definitely would be part of the project in order to, you know, give them the screening that they would need from the trail, or they would be requesting from the trail and the access.
I don't have an opposition to exploring. I guess we're just looking to explore it.
Yep.
And all these questions that I'd ask and 25 others would all be part of that consideration.
Thank you.
Okay.
So is the idea this would come as like a capital improvement to the Radnor Trail?
Yeah, so, you know, from a funding standpoint, it would definitely be a capital improvement with, you know, through the township. I know that there's money that was donated by Penn Medicine several years ago for Veterans and First Responders Park, which is a park that's also in Commissioner Agnew's ward. And that's money that, we've had been meaning to spend for several years. I think this board, we can remember talking about it probably for a decade or better, plus two, I believe. And unfortunately has not come to fruition either. We were looking to have some features within the park at Veterans Park. There was some support in having the American Legion as part of that. Some of that has fallen through. So I think there's interest on behalf of Commissioner Agnew to reappropriate that money to this project.
I guess, I think Bill mentioned it, the cost is going to be expensive. It seems like kind of a very pocketed project that's really, I don't know how broad of a benefit it's going to provide. I guess I don't object to continuing to explore it, but when we haven't had any capital contributions to any of the parks for several years, which that's not anybody's fault, but all of a sudden to have one with this kind of a limited, I guess sort of it only really it just sort of, it seems to be a limited benefit, and as Bill recognizes, what, 150 yards away from another entrance on the park, when there's been several projects that have been, put on the top of the bookshelf and not dusted off. I do have some hesitation with it. But I think a lot will come into where the funding is and so forth and how much it is. But I guess I'm not opposed to the concept. But in terms of prioritizing things, I'm not sure how far this should be put up there. That's just my 2 cents.
My question would be in regards to like ADA, just for disability, because that is a real challenging curve. It's challenging to drive. So I can't even imagine trying to cross it in some safe way. And so thinking about where we could look for funding, what comes to mind for me is, the Americans with Disabilities Act. Is there any funds that we could seek there that would support? I don't know if there are people with disabilities in that area, but it definitely would make it so that people who live on the other side of the trail could actually get there in a safe way, whether you're able-bodied or whether or not you had disabilities or not. But that might be something that we, could factor into it. Maybe obviously they can't pay for the whole thing, or I don't even know how that works, but at least being able to address some of those funds.
Yeah, that would certainly be something we would look into as part of this. It's certainly possible that the funding that's there might not pay for this entire project. Obviously, that's what we want to try and understand, what will it cost? And then if I just go back to this image here, if you take a look where the sidewalk is actually beginning here, sort of midway down the block from Oak Terrace, there is, if you go further east on this slope here, it's kind of steep. So it's another consideration for accessibility as well. I'm not sure ADA can be achieved in this area if you were to extend the sidewalk up to Oak Terrace. So that's another piece and another component that would have to be looked at. And then obviously then there's crossing over Oak Terrace and then getting further down to Ivan. If you're looking to achieve that, it's very hilly in that area. So there's a lot of considerations to be made to really piece it all together.
I also think, at least if it comes back to this board, I would personally want to see a comparison as to what the cost would be to fix the piano key or make it as, fail-safe as possible, to see if that's a viable alternative. Maybe that could stay within the bounds of the donation that was provided by Penn Medicine. Who knows? But I think a cost comparison would definitely be necessary to see if this project, which seems a lot more invasive and expensive, and how it compares. That's just something, I don't know if the rest of the board would want that or not, but I know I would want to see that before I can make any recommendation.
And the best example I could probably give you of what that would look like on Conestoga Road is actually close to you on Bryn Mawr Avenue. If you know where the crossing is there, coming off of South Roberts? I believe off of South Roberts, right from Ithan Valley.
Right.
South Roberts, South Ithan, I believe, and then to Bryn Mawr Avenue, where you
Yes.
have a crossing there. That would
More advanced
probably be
crossing.
indicative of what would be recommended on Conestoga here.
I think even with a sidewalk underneath or alongside that curb there, that is such a, like you mentioned a couple times, cars fly around that curve. And then if there's a car in the other lane, sometimes they swerve or both cars have to swerve. I would feel nervous being on the sidewalk or like with a kid on a scooter or something, even on the sidewalk there, unless there was some kind of fence or something. But it just feels like there's such poor visibility coming from the other direction that I also feel that it would be, there's just more transparency and more visibility a little further up, closer to the parking lot.
Money would be better spent trying to get people to slow down on Conestoga.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if that's within our purview, but that's just the reality of it.
And I really appreciate the feedback. I will definitely make sure to take that back to Commissioner Agnew, as well as members of the township team that have been working on this. And Commissioner Agnew does send her regrets for not being here tonight. She did have to travel unexpectedly.
I would concur with my other board members that just have some concerns about it. I'm all for connectivity, but the photograph that was demonstrated before doesn't look like it connects to much at this point. It goes to a telephone pole, so it's a harder sell. And it's an extraordinary project in terms of access. It's not a minor grade to access. And again, if I'm okay to exploring it, but from a funding perspective, we have so many other things that are important. So we have a Radnor Trail we want to expand. So it's all about prioritizing. So not against it, but not on my high list. So if the ask tonight is to put a motion before for support, if anyone from the board wanted to make that motion, I'd be.
I would move that the board is in favor of exploring the potential option while reserving all rights for the review and further analysis.
You'd put that forth as a motion?
Yes.
I will second that motion as to exploration.
Yeah.
Said, do all agree with that motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion so moved. Motion approved to support as per Andy's description.
Thank you.
Any other new business for you, Tammy?
I don't have any other new business. I would just at this point be moving on to old business projects.
Okay.
Mouse problems tonight.
Trying to figure out where your screensaver is. You're doing some projects at the beach as well?
This is not my computer, which is why I'm struggling.
I saw.
And I'm
like, a
struggling with
park
the mouse
listed.
also, so it's just not, it's a little,
We could use a beach in Radnor. I'm fine.
I think it
I
was
preach for
mentioned
that.
last night or last month, it was one of the Delco trail riders mentioned about it being their cement, like being out riding is their cement. It cements their mental health. I could use a little bit of that too. And Bakir also. I think after this winter, we all could. All right, moving on to Odoriceo. I wanted to revisit the conceptual plan, and I'm going to buzz through some of the slides. I know you guys have seen presentation after presentation for Odoriceo, and I just wanted to kind of do a quick little revisit to where we've been and the road we've kind of traveled in terms of 2025, just a very short recap. We looked at the conceptual plan last spring. We had the RTCA meetings that had existed, I think, in the late spring and during the early summer. We took a look at a revision to the plan in July, September. I know we've gotten a lot of really great feedback. And it's kind of brought us to where we are right now and trying to get to where we sort of have a final conceptual plan that at this point we could start to move on and start to look at order of magnitude costs as we continue to engage our design team that has been brought on board for this project. So I know right now they are working on order of magnitude costs. They're evaluating things like what the stormwater impacts might be to some of the infrastructure. We know we've got a playground, we've got the new pavilion and restroom that we're looking at. Obviously, there's some square footage differences that might come into play there. We talked about having sort of a new entrance exit along West Wayne Avenue with regards to a one-way and drive aisle type scenario that requires some permitting through PennDOT. So just starting to look at all of those pieces and also continuing to build out the rest of the plan. What's the playground going to look like? What are some of the details going to look like? And I think, as we kind of get a little further along in that process and they get further along in that process, we just want to try to get to a ballpark number where we're starting to identify, what this might look like. And then eventually trying to get to the Board of Commissioners to make sort of a final presentation of a concept plan that they can then go back and design, engineer, and start to put together in terms of, what the bid development will look like. So some of these dates are sort of to be determined. One of the last things we were looking at was the dugouts and the stadium seating. I think what we were talking about the last few times we really engaged a lot on Odoriceo, which I think goes back to November, was the last time we really talked in detail. We were trying to understand Radnor Wayne Little League's commitment and interest, potentially for funding dugouts, for funding new structures, and then especially taking a look at, what was essentially, a stadium seating arrangement that would go into the hillside. And it sounds like throughout those conversations, Little League's maybe not really interested in that and doesn't see that as being something that, might be a benefit to the park. They I think what we've heard from folks is that they enjoy the natural aspect of the park. And this is something that, might not be quite that natural and might be very obtrusive looking into the park, given that it will be a lot of concrete and a lot of steel. Certainly could do a good job in stabilizing the bank and a lot of the erosion that we have in that area. But from gathering from the discussions that we had in some of the public meetings, it seems more the natural components of preserving the trees and having more of the bench seating that's there today seems to be sufficient. Perhaps taking a look at the bleachers, maybe we resituate those somewhere else. Of course, having the pavilion area being now swapped with the playground, since we talked about those two amenities being flipped, that gives an opportunity to have some seating in and around the pavilion and the restroom area that might naturally just give us a little bit more, spectator ability, for those who are there for baseball games, soccer games, and what have you. So I worked with the designers to kind of come back and revise that a bit. And what we took a look at was we removed the stadium seating. Right now, we have the dugout structures that you're seeing right here that would look very similar to what we have now at Philippone Park, but different in a way that they would be built into the hillside. So they would give a little bit more of a dugout feel, a little bit more of a cave-like feel, in terms of being inside of them, and also offer an opportunity to better stabilize the banks. And then in talking with Little League and meeting with them, their interest was in having storage closets, some sort of we have it listed on here as an 8x4 storage area where they can basically put the L screens that get left out on the field, as well as the chalkers, the liners, some gear, bases, things like that. And if we had to consider it, based on a feasibility standpoint, once we start getting into the engineering of this, if having an 8x4 type storage area is again just too obtrusive to the landscape, we could also consider just increasing some of the space at the pavilion and just requiring the L screens to be, carried up there, each year and stored up at the pavilion area. We could build out storage so that we'd be able to accommodate that, because the L screens are very large and they have to be moved around. But by the same token, having them laying out on the fields and, even tucked away sometimes in and around home plate in the dugouts, can sometimes be a little bit onerous and present a little bit of a safety issue at the park. So that's one of the considerations. So I'll pause here to see if you have any questions. This was just really the last of the changes I think that we've been looking at.
It's been my experience with the Little League that they're very kind of like onerous of their space, and trying to share a space I don't think is a good idea. I think continuing to try to find a storage space that's for them that they can control and do as, they want to do would be better for everybody, that's working together, as opposed to us trying to share a space. I don't agree with like, putting it with the pavilion, and then, they have their stuff, and then the rest of the park. I think it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be harmonious.
Well, they do use the storage now. I know they do have things in the storage currently, so I think we probably would want to evaluate what the future uses of the pavilion are going to look like for the community to see if that, could that exist? Even if it was just one piece of equipment, and the rest of it maybe was in a smaller type of storage compartment or something that would be down at the field.
That was just for them.
At the field, that would be just for them.
Yeah, I think if you could build something in the dugout that might make sense, would be helpful. If worse comes to worse, I know what we did back in the day when I was running things over here. We would go over to Philippone and break down batting cages and bring them over here and put them in. So there's storage spaces allowable. I think getting rid of the bleachers on what would be the first base side is a great idea for the reasons you stated. The heavy bleacher pavilion. Did I say third
The
base?
stadium
Yeah.
seating that
First
we
base,
had
yeah.
had,
I think.
this structure.
Yeah, correct. I think anyone I've ever brought to that field loves sort of the pastoral quality of it. It's just a dynamite place. Andy and I were just whispering about best place to see a ball game, and part of that is you're perched up on that hill and great view, and you're not in the kids' faces, so that'd be good. Of course, the retaining aspects of the erosion is a big deal. So I think that has to be part of the solution, which it seems as it is here, although you're never going to run a wall the entire length of that hill on either side. But at least some element to try to hold some of that back. But I think those look like good changes. It probably helps costing too.
I would imagine definitely, given the structure. Now, there still would be a staircase, but it would be moved over here. So, obviously the existing staircase over here, as you know, is very undercut and eroded. It's definitely going to be something that's going to have to be completely extracted and replaced anyways. So the thought is to bring it over to this side, especially since we're going to be eliminating I'll call it the asphalt space that's up above the third base line now.
I know that's just conceptual. One thought comes to mind: positioning a staircase next to first base, the pop-ups that draw people over there with their eyes to the sky, running into cement perhaps. But I'm sure the engineers will take that into account in terms of location and what safety provisions are there.
Yes. And I know fencing has also been an issue in that area too, not being tall enough, especially given it's, 14 years plus that are playing on that field. So, and I can appreciate being a visiting team there with my son, that the comments that the people have made, at least, from our teams coming around, they love this field. And just the way it's just so, natural, and, it is removed from the players, which at that age, they appreciate and you appreciate too.
It would have green roofs, I assume, over both of those. They have a roof.
We would make them natural
You
based.
wouldn't be able to access that roof from the back. I would think it would be.
Again, we'd have to figure that out in the
Yeah.
engineering on what that looks like and how, I
different
think
than
I know where you're
silicone.
going with that, is the hillside here and the roof here to where somebody could walk
And
onto
not to
it.
put people on it, but it just and you don't want it so high it blocks the view either. So
No, it definitely wouldn't be.
there's some engineering required. And the very top, I did like the idea of a spot where individuals who may not be able to make it down those steps could sit on the top. Was there a spot there for those that may be able to just want to watch from afar that didn't have to go down?
All the benches that we have there now, we would keep and/or add,
So there would be
add
a-
to those.
Yeah, very
Yeah, there wouldn't be, and
accessible.
those benches are still in really great shape. There would be, maybe just a plan to add more of them.
Yeah, that's nice.
Tammy, let me ask you a question. I'm a little mystified. We've been talking about Odorosio for seemingly a long time, and where do we want to go, like tonight, or what's the next step? And could we're a recommending board, I assume. So therefore, we have to come up, or we should come up with a recommendation of what we want and what we feel is best, and then we present it to the board. And that's timing and that's politics, but that's beside the point. What do we want to accomplish as soon as possible, put it that way? Do we want to come up with a recommendation? I think and again, I don't want to pass judgment on all these ideas. You've spent a lot of time on it. So can we agree on things? That's really what I'm asking. Can we agree on a recommendation, and should we do it sooner rather than later?
Can't we just recommend what you put up there?
That would be the next step, and then that helps us get from concept and taking concept to, again, order of magnitude, just so, again, as this would get presented to the commissioners in concept, we'll call it final concept, certainly not final design, for bid, but that at least allows us to take a step back, get a cost estimate on what it's going to look like. One of the things that I wanted to drill into a little bit more, of course, is the playground and the playground components, and I know that'll be part of it, and that'll flush out through this process as well, and making sure that the residents continue to be engaged on what the playground aspect is going to look like, because I know that's something that's very important to everyone, and folks have a lot of different values in terms of what they want to see in playgrounds. And that can go along with the process, and I can continue to make updates to the board as we move forward. And then getting it to the commissioners, obviously, to start to determine where the funding is going to come from ultimately for the project, and hoping that, aligns up as we, get further into 2026 and start thinking about next year's budget, grants, bonds, all of those things.
We have heard from the community about just the timeliness of getting this done, and to your point, I think we could make a motion tonight just to agree in concept of the most recent changes and to move with speed on moving this ahead, and that's a motion I would put forward. It's just
Second.
Yes. I recommend strongly that we move the process forward to make a recommendation.
So with that said, the motion put forth and first and second, if we can all agree for that motion to move forth.
I'm sorry, I have one question.
Sure.
You talked about the playground not being a solid concept. What would it take to get it to that point, and then we move everything, as opposed to it's still kind of out there and not really solidified? Like, how it feels like we're so close to being able to say, okay, this is a plan. And the only thing that seems like it's missing is what you just said. Like, we talked about the dugouts, we talked about, all this other stuff, the pavilions, but we have not spent as much time on the playground as we have on the other things. And it feels like if we did that, then we'd have a solid plan that we could say, here you go, this is what we think.
Well, I think we had a lot of conversations with the neighbors when we talked with them, I think, about the playground. I think what we heard a lot was commercial playground, inclusive, natural aspects. I know we heard spray ground. I think we put that one on the shelf, recognizing we didn't want to have water and that sort of feature, within the park, and recognizing that that would be a destination now here at Odorosio Park. So I think we have a lot of great ideas. I've actually engaged Game Time. So right now we have Playworld structures are our playgrounds that exist at Enki and Clemacrone. We have landscape structures, which is over at Fenimore Woods. So we've kind of utilized a lot of like major companies over the years. And so Game Time is one that we have not worked with here in Radnor. And I had an opportunity when I was at the national conference to engage actually with the CEO there and have a good conversation. We've never had a steady rep here in Radnor Township that's really engaged us. So having that conversation, they've linked me up with one of their regional people, and I've started to discuss ideas. So we have some things that we've started to put to paper. So the idea of a playground is definitely in the project. It's not a question of whether or not we're going to have one. It's, the playground area space that's identified here will definitely be one. It's now starting to bring something together. So my goal is to start to turn that into something that we can actually look at on paper in terms of, basically a playground plan. And then we can invite residents to take a closer look at that, say, determine if they like, what they don't like, show different options, and try and, get to at least something that we can then price out relative to the playground.
So it sounds like we're about maybe 6 months off from being able to say this, because, right, we still got to develop the plan and get the rep and all of that, and then present these options to the community for them to, so in my mind, I'm hearing you say 6 months.
No, I think we can do that next month.
Okay.
Where I am in the timeline of it is just starting to bring all of that together. I've actually met with the rep, and I've gone through a whole list of things from, what they offer and what they have as a company to take a look at least so we have a starting point. And then we can hear from folks. I know, like, trying to blend in more natural aspects to that is something that they're open to. Like, if we wanted to do gardens and sand pits and things like that, like some of the stuff that we had talked about throughout this process, that would have to most likely be complemented with another company that would do that around a commercial company's design. That might take a little bit of extra time. But I don't think it's anything that precludes us from having a placeholder number to be able to keep moving the project forward to basically present to the commissioners. But before it would go to them, I would like to have something that we, playground-wise, that we do feel good about. But I don't see it taking 6 months.
So just to clarify, Sharifa, you'd support the motion as is to move the general concept along? Would you be supportive of that?
Yes, as long as we're going to eventually get that playground part married to
Narrow
Absolutely.
down. Yeah, it just seems like the general concept is what we're after, and
Yes.
now the specifics of what
Right.
what type within that playground space, and that's where you'll have more
Right.
proposals.
And similar to the pavilion also, because I know we've spent
Dugouts and all that.
We've spent years on pavilions too, so,
Yeah.
we definitely want to make sure we,
But the general
Blend that
layout,
within,
the
too.
parking, having the dugouts narrowed down to, that was a big shift. So I think we're down to the more concrete, final, get it done. So
a recommendation from the board tonight would be fantastic.
that's our motion. I think we've pushed our commissioners to move along.
Terrific.
Anything else with Odorisa, or are you going to move on to Fenimore?
Do you want to take a vote on that motion, or?
Oh,
Just-
if
we
we
just-
can finalize it, we had a first and a second, and just we can have a complete unanimous vote on that?
This is crazy.
Yes.
Aye. With that, we'll move on to Fenimore.
So for Fenimore Woods, I just wanted to give an update on the progress on the stable. And that would be my remaining update for the evening, unless there's other questions. So looking ahead at stable construction, I'm just kind of going through the concept plans now. I'm going to kind of go through a lot of the things I've already showed you. We know there's been a significant amount of work with the demolition. We had hazardous materials mitigation that took place. We have masonry that had been underway. Some of these pictures go back to the parts of the fall when there wasn't snow on the ground, of course. I know we've had some limitations lately, but so you can see a lot of the demo masonry, forming of the lintels around the windows. We have roof sheathing that's been put on, roof framework that has been done. The soffits and the fascias are starting to come together. So just kind of buzzing through these. I know you've seen a lot of them already, and I'll get to some of the more recent ones. Here we have a lot of the internal framework that's been done. You see some of the lower level views and the upper level views, looking in from outside and inside. A lot of the stud walls that had come together. And then, of course, the rough-ins for the floor drainage. All of this has been completed and done. This is a lot of the interior plumbing rough-in. You can see all of the plumbing components that are going in and around and through the building, and most of this has been completed. Really what's remaining now is before we get to drywall, which is something that can't be done until the building gets to be airtight. So here are just more of the frameworks for the windows. You can see the masonry that has come together. Framework, more framework pictures, more sheathing pictures, and then taking a look at some of the construction of the soffits and the fascia where the awnings are coming out. These are some of the newer improvements. And then, of course, you know, we've got lots of snow that's on the ground, certainly has not overshadowed the progress and the work. But where we are right now is we need to get to roof shingles. And before we can get to roof shingles, we really need 40, 50-degree days in order for some of the lamination to adhere. That's going to be really important. And then once we get to an airtight building, we can start electrical work, drywall, and then eventually some of the site work. I will say these guys are working every day, and the progress has been really, really fast and really solid. The team that's working over there, Davis Construction, has done an outstanding job. We have a standing meeting every week. We meet on site. We take a look at the progress, and even as cold as it has been, they have continued on, and we're still on pace. It looks like we would be, you know, finishing up and wrapping up, getting to punch list by spring, and still eyeing, you know, this building being open easily by summer. So if there's any particular pictures you want me to go back to, I'd be happy to. It's really been fantastic to see it come together.
Do you have any specific
Success.
programming in mind for that building when it's done?
It's going to include bathrooms
Other than
and a large storage area.
the storage area?
That program?
A large storage area.
Yeah, number
So
one and number two, but there's a large space in there. I just didn't know.
there will be a large space in there,
Yeah.
and if we go back to a lot of our discussions, we were not fitting
Yes.
it out for programming.
Okay.
But with that being said, years ago when I started here, it was, you know, it was 1999, and we had 8 weeks of nature camp that we did on site. And although they used the pavilion area and the pavilion space and the trails and of course the pond, it would have been nice to have an interior space to come into if there's a wicked storm that comes through. So one of the things I will say is that this building does offer that opportunity. You know, there isn't a plan to make it a nature center at this point or have it be an interior, you know, usable space because it's not being configured, it's not going to be finished. Even though there's going to be drywall in the bathroom spaces and in the storage spaces, the interior is not, you're going to see the inside of the masonry when you look into this building.
2/3 of the space is storage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's only a third that's the lavatory area, so it's really just, we have
Absolutely.
a pretty big storage space.
We do.
And it's not finished either.
No, it will, no.
It will be that?
It's going to look very similar to that. Where you see the studs now is where you're going to see drywall. Then you're going to see, you know, the building carved up. But it will have an open space concept within it. It's just not designed for programming.
But some finished to the walls and
Yes.
basic wiring inside for lighting and whatnot?
Yes.
But that's it, right?
Any heat or insulation?
The only heat is a baseboard heat that'll be into the bathrooms. Otherwise, the building is not configured for HVAC. We had a huge hang-up on that in, I think, July of 2022, I believe, 2023, where we had a very big discussion about that. And when the cost of the building was too much because of that, that's where we scaled back
So
the
most
project.
likely that space will be used for Radnor day camp use storage for that type of equipment?
No, I don't,
Just
I don't see
general?
us using it for any of the day camp storage. All the day camp storage is actually
Here.
here. And since they are back and forth between, here and either the high school or the Radnor Elementary School for camp, I don't see that being a space where we would house that sort of stuff. Now, with that being said, in trying to get a nature programming, nature camp back on pace there, we could see that being a storage that's utilized by camps that take place at Fenimore.
Hey, Tammy, where is the money? Okay, this is great, and I'm fully supportive, but isn't there some leftover grant or something from 2016, or where's the money for this?
It's the 2016 bond
Okay.
There was
and we
dedicated
still have-
funds.
So this is being financed through that?
through the bond, correct.
Right.
And then we also have grants that we've been able to obtain for both the pavilion and for the stable that we're working on as well. Very minor grants, but
Okay,
it's,
but
there's still
they
a
all
little bit
add
of
to
money.
the, great.
The majority of it is coming from the 2016 borrowing.
Okay, okay. Now, I bring up maybe a sore topic. What's the status of the pond?
Sore
that-
topic.
Sore topic, so we'll leave it
Without
at
a
that.
without capital funding, it's a very sore topic.
Okay.
And
I just tossed it out there.
it's, we need funding, and the pond has serious subsurface issues that have to be addressed. And
Has
so when we're sitting
anybody
here, we're
brought
sitting
that
here
up?
in July, and there's going to be algae again that's going to be floating on the top of the pond as a
Right.
result of it.
Well, where, and I say this, where does this board come in, and where does the Board of Commissioners come in, and besides being a sore topic? In other words, is there any impetus to get funds? Is there any impetus to do anything?
So I think just to answer that question, just kind of just across the surface, no pun intended. I think there's been a little bit of frustration on behalf of the staff and the Parks Board over the years in having a lack of a dedicated capital fund each year. I think we made a good run a few years where we had the list of all the capital projects. The board sat and looked at those, and we started to tier them into, okay, what are vital health, safety, accessibility, major issues we have to address across the park system. Where do we have failing infrastructure that we know is vital to our community? And then, really start to get into like where our priority projects are. And I think we spent a lot of time doing that, and then only coming to find that there's no funding year after year after year. So I think we've kind of sat back a little bit, and now have just been waiting for the funding. And when we have funding, or if we know that there's the prospect of funding that might be coming, then let's take a look at that, and start to really think about what those priorities might be. And in the meantime, staff is always searching for grants. We look for grants that might be able to give us an opportunity to enhance the pond, be it, harvesting the pond, cleaning out the subsurface, all the stuff that we want to do. A lot of times those grants have they have a match required. So, if it's a 50-50 match and we don't have funding, we don't have the match for the funding either. And I know that, there's a lot of hope that on the horizon, we are going to get to a point where we do start funding a capital plan, that we can have that conversation and really start to look across the park system, at playgrounds that need to be replaced, like, Beauconnor and Cowan, which, have been on the back burner. We know Odoricio, even before those, has to be funded in terms of a project itself. So I think, we would love to start digging our teeth into that and starting to, come up with a plan, like a real capital plan, that we all feel good about. And we recognize it's always going to be a living, breathing document, but at least starting to, get to where our priorities are. And for some people, it's going to be the pond, and for others, it's going to be a playground.
But
And for
that's,
others, it's
let
going
me
to be
ask you a
something
question, though.
else.
Is that in our purview? Okay, you talk about capital funding, all right. Now we're into the Board of Commissioners, I assume. But what is in our purview as to, I say capital funding? We can sit here and recommend all the things we want, but if it ain't going nowhere, it's going nowhere. And I guess what I'm really asking is, okay, the pond, where does that fit in? And I guess we are the stewards of that. where does that stand in the priorities of life, of capital funding? And I pose that to you, or to the board here. Where does the capital funding come in, and what, should that even be in our lexicon of discussion?
I mean, my recommendation would be is at some point, if this board wanted to, send a message to the commissioners, especially as they would start to be preparing the 2027 budget, which will start being under consideration, as soon as we get to July and August. That's when the staff starts to build out, everything that we need that'll go into the next year's budget. It might be a consideration for this board to share a message with them, just urging them that that's a matter of importance for 2027.
That would be my suggestion, is that the board seriously consider making a recommendation that we pursue priorities in capital funding. I don't know what that technically means, but we need money, excuse the expression. We need money, and the only way we're going to get it is through the Board of Commissioners. But fortunately, our former president was now on the Board of Commissioners, who can see his way through, I'm hoping, to push this through. See? I put him on the spot. But no, all I'm saying is, let's use the word capital funding in our discussions, I think.
In the conversations that I've had with Finmore, one of the things that I brought up or suggested was perhaps maybe doing like a fundraiser. And maybe that's, I'm from nonprofit, so if you don't have the money, telling people what your needs are and why, because I think that pond is very important to this community. I know my grandkids fish there, and when the pond is really nice, people like to fish there. That's a really nice area to walk around. I mean, there's value in it. And I think being able to see that the township is going as hard as they can on the pavilion and on the, whatever this thing is.
Stable.
Stables. That we need help. You know what I mean? Like we need you, everybody to kind of jump in, go to your employers, whoever, whatever, and let's do like a dance or something fun to raise money that's going to help us really not just skim but like do what needs to be done so that it's long lasting and not just for the season. Because the season really is kind of like a waste of money if you know it's going to come right back. You know what I mean? Like if we're not going to come up with a solution, we're going to be doing this every single year in a time when we don't really have the funds to keep throwing it in there. I just think if we could come up with a number as to what it would take to rectify that, and that's just one project, obviously, but I think it's important enough that we could get enough people behind it, enough corporations, people connected. I mean, this is Radnor Township.
Just one thing I would say is that, fundraising, or fundraising, sponsorships, all of that, park endowment funds, park impact funds, all of that, there's a lot of ways to generate money. What we need to have is a plan. Because even though we here collectively might feel like the Fenimore Woods Pond is number one on our list, there's going to be a whole lot of people across the township that aren't going to agree with that. And they're going to think we just put $1.5 million into Fenimore, we need money to go towards another project, like replacing Beau Connor Playground or Cowan Playground. I'm just using those as examples. Or some other project that, the Willows Cottage. I mean, there's just so many that are on that list. So, and then, people are going to want to have a fundraising campaign for those projects as well. So I think we have a lot on our plate. It's probably worthwhile at some point to really start looking at what those projects look like and like what are the priorities, and starting to engage the community on that to hear what they have to say.
Tammy,
So that when funding does become available, that work is already done.
Tammy, if I could jump back to the issue of the new business and the Brookside Avenue sidewalk. Now, we made that motion, is that now going to the Board of Commissioners?
Yes, we'll forward that on to the Board of Commissioners. So what'll happen then is, we're going to put an RFP out to consultants to basically bid to engineer the plan, to do feasibility and engineering plan, and then we're going to get those proposals back. I'm going to believe those proposals are probably going to be over our limits for approval internally, which is $7,500. So that's going to have to go to the commissioners for their approval. So with that, your recommendation will go along with that.
I guess my question is, how much, and I should have asked this before we voted on, I guess, how much work is going to be done by staff right now? Because, I mean, you just rattled off 4 of the projects, which come to mind as I would put way ahead in terms of priority, pending feedback from the community, besides a sidewalk, which quite frankly only seems like it's going to generate benefit a handful of individuals in the township. So I'm just wondering, how much work will the township staff be required to do based on that RFP project, when I could see a scenario where projects, capital budget funds, whatever limited there may be, other projects would get priority? I mean, I guess what kind of work is going to be put in by the township now?
And
Every
cost.
project requires work.
I
And
understand.
every time, we have a lean staff.
Right.
Myself and Steve Norsini are often on point with with these types of projects. He on the engineering side, me obviously on the park, and, we're doing surveys and things like that side. So we kind of teamwork through that. All of those projects require a lot of time, and then when time goes to those projects, they don't go to Odoriceo, they don't go to Fenimore, they don't go
Right.
to some of the other areas.
So just the next process for township staff, based on the motion that we passed, is for the township staff to begin work, or that still would have to get through board approval for you guys to start digging in?
Yes.
It would still need board approval?
They would still, yes, the proposal itself would have to go before the commissioners, and then they would have to weigh in on whether or not they approve that. And then, with that legislation would again, your vote would accompany that.
But the township, I'm sorry, I might not be asking the clear question. The township staff would still have to incur time before the Board of Commissioners approve that?
Yes, because we're going to work through the proposal process. A lot of times when we put out an RFP, we get the proposals. They're not always 100%. We have to go through them, determine what's missing, sit down with those who made the proposals to give a more complete proposal, and then we'll sit down and we'll look at who those consultants are, and then we'll make a decision either based on the cost, whichever being the cheapest, or just based on comprehensiveness and what have you, which we would move forward to the commissioners for their approval. And then once it goes there, if it gets approved, then there's seeing the whole contract through in working with said consultant.
Is this the process that we voted on,
Yeah.
that we said to explore the Brookside thing, we're going to have to go through the RFP and all that?
That would be the next step.
Wow.
So you're
Okay, I did not know that necessarily.
And so just for the record, regardless of your vote, I believe it's a project that's going to continue to move forward, because Commissioner Agnew would like to keep moving with that, and the residents have a lot of interest in it. So I'm not saying to change your vote, but I'm just saying,
No.
if you do change
Yeah.
your vote, I'm not sure that that's
I-
going to
I-
change our course.
I don't want to speak for the other 5 people on the stage, but I'd much rather see what's going to be at least $300,000 to $500,000 go to other things.
Right.
Any number of the things that we've mentioned. Understand, we're an advisory board. We don't get to spend a penny. It's going to be a tough sell for me to spend that kind of money where I think there are much more pressing needs to essentially give us 2 entries within 323 feet, which is what Google Maps tells me the distance is.
Totally agree, and I was really not understanding. I thought the exploration would be a minor movement forward. I did not know we'd have to go through the RFP and the various process here, because as we've just discussed the last 20 minutes, there are a lot more things, in my opinion, only my opinion, that are more important than the Brookside, entrance.
Would it be appropriate then, Andy, would you want to make a motion to revise our previous?
I mean, since it was my motion, it's kind of giving everybody whiplash here myself, so,
I would retract my second, if that means anything. I mean, I don't-
my feedback on is it doesn't sound like good use of staff time. If it's going to go forward regardless, I don't know whether our advisory opinion matters or not. I mean, But it doesn't sound like in terms of the priorities and just a lack of funds, it doesn't sound like a good use of staff time to me. But if it's going to go forward anyway, I don't know whether it really matters or not. I'm happy to, that's my opinion on it, but if people, I mean, I don't know if it's, I don't know the Roberts rules well enough to know whether we can withdraw motions or change our votes
You
or
can
any of
make,
that.
you can make a new motion which would supersede it.
I would then make a superseding motion that this board not recommend that further staff time be spent in exploring this option of the Brookside sidewalk.
You need a second,
Second.
and then it would go to the board. Bill?
I'll vote in favor of the motion on the table.
The motion that's already passed.
No, superseding.
Sharifa?
No, I'm not in favor of the motion that was presented initially.
Okay, so.
I support the current motion, which is
Current
that we
motion.
take a position not to
Sharifa?
support this.
I support the first motion, to explore what can be done and come to some understanding of what it will cost to make that an accessible area. I'm committed to the fact that Conestoga Road at that juncture is extremely dangerous. And if it's dangerous for one of our, citizens, then it's something that we should address. Exploration is not gonna be like a horrible thing.
I think just to clarify, our exploration is going to be to potentially invest a little bit of money to see what it's going to cost to construct it. And when I say a little bit, I'm not trying to say that facetiously in some way. It's going to be something that's going to have to be authorized by the board. I mean, I know by all means, 7 to 10,000 or 7 to 15,000, anything in that range is still a lot of money. I don't want to
I think this
downplay
question
that.
is the board looking to this as a project we wish to champion at this point? And it's sounding like there is some reservations that we want to send the message. That's what this is about. So you would be against the new resolution?
I would want to continue to explore it.
With me, I think I'd be in favor of the new resolution. I just have reservations about this. If it was an economic process, I have reservations, so I would be with the new resolution. So it's 5-1 at this point. So we're going to modify our motion, so as Andy expressed.
Thank you.
To get us back on track, and we came back to where we were before, are we at the point of the Radnor Township capital budget, or are you?
I think we discussed that, where we are. And beyond that, I don't have any further updates unless the board has questions.
I think we're good. Trail projects, is that something you're going to go over?
There's no further updates on that.
Okay, and we had before us the list of the steward program that I know you gave us to potential revisions, Tammy. We ran through the list, and we're waiting our new member to join the board to fill it in. But I think we definitely have representation for most of the parks at this point. But the hope is when we get this done, Tammy, we can post it to the community so they know who the stewards are for each park. And that being said, were there any steward updates for those that you represent for any of the parks? Too cold?
They all have this white stuff all over them.
I have just two comments, and then some of them are for just generic. It's related to the Radnor Conservancy. I had spoken to Amber Levy, who represents Radnor Conservancy, and they had an interest in March to do a Trails Day at the Willows, which I know, Tammy, they're going to reach out to you to find some appropriate projects for them to do at the Willows, which ideally we can get our community involved in helping with some of our trails that need some help there. And I think that was the main point that I had. So with that, I think we can just move on to the public participation portion. We have one visitor here tonight. Do you have anything for us, sir, tonight, or just visiting? Just observing. Just observing, all right. If there's any other points of interest tonight for you all?
I'll tell you what I would love, and I'm really going to show my ignorance. Exactly what is our responsibility as a steward of these parks? I don't know what, and I say that in all ignorance, what am I supposed to do?
So just a summary, first of all, so the Park Steward Program it's an internal program for all of you to basically divide and conquer, getting out to the parks and, taking an opportunity to learn about your said parks, that end up falling under your purview. But I know you guys are going to go through and you're going to divide them up and pick which ones, amongst them, are yours to basically to go look at and spend time there, getting around, taking a look and seeing, what does it look like with people there? Like, what are the issues? What are the concerns? Are there maintenance things that you see that, maybe need to be addressed? I will say, our Public Works Department does a fantastic job. Our Parks Department does a fantastic job. But we have a lot of spaces, so it's not really something where they're able to have their eyes and their ears everywhere. So, some of it has to do not only just with the infrastructure and looking at the amenities, but just basic site operations. It could be ingress, egress, general flow. Could be places where, we're seeing increased dog activity, off leash, things like that, and reporting back to this board and to myself, of course, what those are. That way, especially if there are things that you see immediately, they can be addressed. I know that's been a very successful program over the years where folks have been out in their parks and they'll see something that maybe, our guys might have been through the park the day before and didn't see it, something new happened. And then I'll get an email to go and, have our guys address it, have our staff, kind of attend to whatever is going on, or if there's some sort of an operational issue, we can sort of get ahead of it right away. So I think that's been more of the goal. Just
Thank
in
you.
summary.
And I will tell you right now, the Capelli Golf Range is safe, sound, and there hasn't been anybody over there recently.
Yeah, I think it's also just so instead of us knowing very little about each of the parks, if an issue comes forward,
Yeah.
like someone says, hey, the dog's there, or the playground at this park needs to be repaired, and instead of all of us scratching our heads, we can turn to whoever has that park and say, yeah, actually, I know that, this is what it's used for, this is what's needed, I know where that's located, and sort of fill in the rest of us as a resource, so.
Super, thank you.
That's all right. We'll wrap up tonight. Motion to adjourn.
All right, second.
And all agree, adjourn?
Aye.